Jessica and I have been married for 8 years. These 8 years have been like a long dream, filled with sweetness and bitterness. Once upon a time, Jessica was a daughter of heaven, shining brightly, but somehow she unexpectedly fell to the bottom of her life. And I, like a steadfast star, always stay by her side. I thought that life would go on like this in a plain and happy way, but who could have expected that the gears of fate suddenly turned and messed up everything? With the painting series Constellation Muses, she made a big splash in the art world and returned to the peak of a talented painter. At the exhibition, her works were highly sought after and each one was sold at a high price. Among them, the oil painting titled Muse was even more stunning. Under the soft moonlight, the lake was shimmering with broken light. A young man in white stood in the wind, holding flowers in his hands, smiling brightly, captivating everyone. Jessica said that this painting is not for sale and is worth a fortune. When a reporter asked her who the man in the painting was, she smiled gently and said, "He is the love of my life." However, fate played a cruel joke on me again. On the same day, I received a divorce agreement from her. She chose to leave the house with nothing, and the money in the house belonged to me. Looking at the agreement, I felt my heart breaking bit by bit. I saw the live video of the exhibition online, and somehow I called her. "Congratulations, the exhibition was a success." I tried to sound calm, but my heart was already in turmoil. "It has nothing to do with you." Her voice was cold and distant. "Why not? The income from the exhibition is also a marital asset. We have to settle it clearly." I couldn't help but raise my voice. She snorted coldly. "William, you are really greedy for money." I smiled bitterly and said, "Money is sometimes more reliable than people." She was silent for a long time and said, "Let the lawyer send you a new agreement tomorrow." I agreed without hesitation. "Okay, from now on, we will break off our relationship and have nothing to do with each other." Before she finished speaking, I hung up the phone, not wanting to hear another word from her. Looking back to 4 months ago, I was still looking forward to being with her for the rest of my life. That day was our 6th wedding anniversary and Valentine's Day, so I flew back from France quietly to give her a surprise. When I got to the bottom of the apartment building, I saw a young man standing in the snow with his luggage. His hands were red from the cold, but he was talking on the phone with a happy face. "Guess where I am? I miss you, so I came to see you." This scene reminded me of the time when Jessica and I were in a long-distance relationship in college. When we missed each other so much, we would run to each other regardless of everything. I was about to call her when I saw her rushing out of the corridor and throwing herself into the boy's arms. The boy hugged her tightly, and they kissed passionately in the snowy night. I froze in place, watching their sweetness and feeling like an outsider. Jessica looked up and saw me, and subconsciously protected the boy. The boy asked her who I was in confusion, and I said calmly, "I'm her husband." The boy immediately stood in front of Jessica and said, "This is my fault, don't blame her." I looked at Jessica. She pursed her lips, walked to the boy, held his hand, and said, "It's what you see." Perhaps it was because of the heavy snow and wind. My mind went numb. I didn't ask questions, didn't argue, I just turned around and went home. She didn't follow me. When I got home, the balcony window was wide open and the cold wind blew in. I could almost see her surprise when she received the boy's call and her excitement when she saw him. On the flower stand next to her, there was an unfinished painting on the drawing paper. The boy in the painting was holding a rose with a shy look on his face. She had also painted me so attentively before. Jessica and I met in high school when we were 16 years old. At that time, she was a rich lady, a top student, and a school beauty, while I was a country boy with a rural accent and poor English. We should not have had any contact, but we became desk mates. She always patiently protected me, taught me knowledge, and told me, "Girls are always timid when they speak, but a slight smile can bring thousands of flowers to bloom." I had a crush on her for 3 years and never thought that she would like me too. After the college entrance examination, she did not apply to the military university, but chose the Academy of Fine Arts because painting was her dream. As for me, I could only go to a school in the South, thousands of miles away from her. That summer, she came to my small mountain village to collect folk songs, and I was her guide. Together, we looked at the flowers on the hillside, listened to the birds singing in the forest, and looked at the clouds in the sky. On the last day, my mother took out the plum wine she brewed at home. She drank a glass and fell drunk in my arms, blushing and saying, "William, I like you." When I helped her pack up, I found that my shadow was all over her paintings and notebooks. On the way to the station, I hesitated for a long time and finally asked her, "If I confess my feelings to you now, is it too late?" She cried with joy. "It's not too late. As long as it's you, it's never too late." At that moment, the sun shone on her face, and I felt that I was the happiest person in the world. We were in a long-distance relationship during the 4 years of college. Although we were far apart, I wanted to give her enough love and security. I never stopped saying good morning and good night to her every day, and I carefully selected gifts to send her on holidays. Even if I was too busy with work, I would still find time to video chat with her. She often smiled like a spoiled child and said, "William, you love me so much." I let her make trouble, and when she had enough trouble, I gently kissed her forehead. At that time, the world became beautiful. From the age of 18 to 28, we were together for 10 years. Those memories are my most precious wealth. But now, looking at the strange boy in the painting, the past memories came flooding back like a tide, and the emotions that had been suppressed for a long time suddenly burst out. I rushed over like a madman, grabbed the painting, and pulled it hard with both hands. The paper hissed and broke. The pieces of paper fell, just like my broken heart. After that, I collapsed on the sofa, staring at the ceiling, sitting alone until dawn. Jessica came back. I could smell the unfamiliar hotel shower gel on her body. When she saw me, her eyes dodged and a trace of guilt flashed across her face. "I'm sorry." My eyes were bloodshot and my voice was hoarse and not like myself. "When did it start?" I gritted my teeth and tried to stay calm. She was straightforward and told me everything about their past. The boy's name was Ryan, a senior student at the Academy of Fine Arts who also loved painting. They met last year when Jessica returned to her alma mater for the school anniversary. Ryan appreciated her talent and became a fanatical admirer. They often reminisced about Van Gogh under the stars and talked about Monet's water lilies by the lake. Jessica said that they were soulmates, not only confidants, but also lovers. Hearing this, my heart felt like it was hit hard by a heavy hammer. We had been together for 10 years, but it was no match for their 10 months of acquaintance. Jessica spoke of Ryan with a gentle look in her eyes, repeatedly emphasizing, "I really love him." I was so angry that I was shaking all over and yelled at her, "He knew you were married but still interfered. How would he be a good person? Isn't he just after money?" Jessica looked at me with a cold look in her eyes and said, "William, he is not like you. He only cares about money." These words were like a sharp knife, piercing my heart directly, and the pain almost suffocated me. Jessica is a romanticist who never cared about money. When she was in college, she was already famous. Many people offered her paintings for high prices, but she refused them all, saying that she would only give paintings to the destined ones. But fate played tricks on her. The year she graduated, her family went bankrupt. Her parents were chased by creditors and died in a car accident. She was blocked at the door of her house by creditors, and she was isolated and helpless. When I found out, I was extremely anxious and secretly climbed over the wall to find her. Seeing her helpless appearance, I felt so distressed that I hugged her tightly and said seriously, "Jessica, marry me. I have no status or money, but I have a true heart that loves you." Later, I consulted a lawyer. Although legally children do not need to repay their parents' debts, the creditors were unwilling to give up. The endless harassment seriously affected Jessica's life. With her mother's consent, I took out all the family's savings, raised money everywhere, and negotiated with the creditors. In the end, I helped her pay off her debts at the lowest cost. Life was difficult after marriage. The rented house was old and shabby, leaking wind and rain. On typhoon days, the house was flooded. In winter, the wind was howling, and it was so cold that people could not fall asleep. Even so, we still hugged each other and talked all night, cheering each other up. Jessica once went to find people who wanted to buy her paintings before, but was humiliated. She used to offend people because of her noble character, and now she was in trouble, so people naturally didn't look good to her. I felt sorry for her and was determined not to let her go out to sell paintings again. In order to make her life better, I worked 3 jobs every day and earned 100 yuan, and I wanted to spend 99 yuan on her. Once I was anemic and temporarily blinded for a few minutes. She was so scared that she was in a panic. When she took care of me, her voice trembled and she cried heartbreakingly. She said, "I would regret not marrying you, but marrying you would drag you down." I called her a fool. In my heart, she was never a burden. At that time, although life was hard, I felt happy. Let's get a divorce. Jessica's words were like a bolt from the blue, bringing me back to reality. She was firm and said, "I'll agree to whatever you want." My heart felt like it was being tightly grasped, and it hurt so much. What did I want? I just wanted us to be together forever. But she obviously didn't understand and just asked me to make conditions. I smiled bitterly because in her heart, she could really give up everything for that man. Jessica lowered her eyes and dropped another bombshell. "William, I'm pregnant with a child." My heart shattered into pieces in an instant, and at that moment, the world seemed to collapse. I remembered that we had a child. In the second year of our marriage, Jessica became pregnant, and I was so happy that I wanted to fly. But she secretly had an abortion without telling me, and cried, "William, we are poor now and can't afford to raise a child. Don't let him suffer in this world." She repeatedly said sorry, and I suppressed my grief and forced a smile to comfort her. "It's okay. There will be more in the future." That day, she hugged me tightly and kept saying in my ear, "I love you." These words once closely connected our hearts in difficult days. Since then, I have worked even harder. I tried to read people's expressions and gradually gained a firm foothold in the workplace. My boss was in the import and export trade and had many social events. I could drink a lot, so he loved to take me with him. After every social event, I went home and vomited all day long. Jessica stayed with me all night and took good care of me. She always advised me, "Don't hurt your body for money." But I wanted to give her a better life, so I didn't take her words to heart. Over time, I accumulated connections and later started a red wine business. I was busy every day, and business trips and social events became commonplace. Jessica also said that it was okay to have enough money and not to work too hard. But I had 2 wishes in my heart. One was that I hoped she could pursue her dream of painting without restraint, and the other was that I hoped that the abandoned child would come back to me. God will not let down those who work hard, and life gradually got better. In the 5th year of marriage, we had a house and saved some money. I was full of joy and plucked up the courage to say to her, "Honey, we can have another child." I thought I would get a warm response, but unexpectedly, she was not interested and only responded coldly, "William, now is not the time." Then she confided that she had fallen into a creative bottleneck and could not draw satisfactory works for a long time. I hurriedly comforted her. "Your paintings are great. My friends all like them very much. Mr. Zhang is moving to a new house next month and specifically asked to buy your paintings for decoration." Jessica sneered. "What do they know about art?" I was stunned and felt that I had said something wrong. She hurriedly apologized and explained that she didn't look down on businessmen, but just wanted professional recognition. She buried her head in my neck and said depressedly, "I'm becoming less and less confident." Thinking about it now, our relationship may have quietly grown apart at that time, but I was so busy that I ignored her changes. Soon, Jessica's condition improved and she was smiling all the time. I thought she had broken through the bottleneck, but later I found out that she had a new love. The boy was in his prime and pure. Jessica described him as the beauty of the 4 seasons, while in her eyes, I was just a businessman full of money and could not resonate with her soul. "William, I'm sorry for you." Jessica's words echoed in my ears. I was silent for a long time, and I blurted out with reluctance, "I will not divorce you." But she responded coldly, "It is not up to you." At that moment, I clearly heard the sound of love breaking. When Jessica and I were at our most strained, My mother was hospitalized for a serious illness and was diagnosed with advanced cancer. My father died early, and my mother worked hard all her life. When I got married, I couldn't take care of myself, and she lived alone in the countryside, so I was afraid of causing trouble. Later, when the economy improved, I had no time to accompany her. Looking at my thin mother on the hospital bed, I was filled with self-blame. My mother asked, "Where is Jessica?" I forced a smile and said, "She's busy with her art exhibition recently." I also told my mother that Jessica was appreciated by the master of painting, Mr. Zhou Yi. My mother smiled with relief and said, "Jessica finally has a chance to shine. You will have a good life in the future." Mom is relieved. I ran out of the ward with an excuse, and tears flowed out uncontrollably. Fate really plays tricks on people. Just after I quarreled with Jessica, she received a message from Mr. Zhou that he wanted to see her. The two had a good chat. Jessica regarded the young man as a lucky star and felt that he helped her find her original intention. But she didn't know that I had worked hard to get this opportunity. I calmed down and returned to the ward. Suddenly, my mother said she wanted to see Jessica. I had no choice but to contact her. Perhaps it was my pride that got in the way. I said in a negotiating tone, "Jessica, let's make a deal. I agree to divorce you, and you play a scene with me." "Okay." She agreed straightforwardly. Hearing this answer, my heart ached and all kinds of negative emotions surged in my heart. I felt like I was going crazy. Jessica came to the appointment on time. I hadn't seen her for half a month, and she looked even more beautiful. It seemed that she was doing well without me. We pretended to be intimate and walked into the ward. When my mother saw us, her cloudy eyes suddenly became bright. She forced herself to sit up and repeatedly told us to cherish each other. She usually didn't talk much, but this time she had a lot to say. I knew she was worried. Jessica agreed to everything. Finally, my mother put our hands together and told us to live a good life. My eyes were red. I wanted to say that if my mother left, there would be no relatives in the world, but when the words came to my lips, I couldn't say them. After leaving the ward, we were still holding hands. I was greedy for the remaining warmth. The thought of, "Can we not get a divorce?" flashed through my mind. At this time, Jessica's cell phone rang, and she let go of my hand to answer it. Listening to her intimate words and looking at her shy expression, I felt that she was very unfamiliar. After she finished the call, she saw that I was in a state of dismay and reached out to touch my forehead. I avoided her reflexively. She said awkwardly, "Let's wait until your mother gets better before getting a divorce." I woke up and nodded in agreement. My mother's condition was getting worse and worse, and her memory was becoming chaotic. She kept asking to see Jessica. Jessica was cooperative and accompanied me in the play for 3 months, patiently listening to my mother's repeated instructions. Every time Jessica came to the hospital, Ryan's phone rang like a series of calls. Later, he just came by himself. The day they showed up at the hospital hand in hand, my anger suddenly rose to my throat. I rushed over like an angry bull, blocking them and shouting at the top of my voice, "Get away from me." Jessica hurried over to explain that she would stay nearby and make sure my mother wouldn't see it. I wasn't willing to give up and sneered, "Stop showing off your affection here. You'll suffocate to death if you hold it in for a while." Ryan, who had been silent all this time, suddenly stood up, his face flushed, and yelled at me, "Are you going too far? You're both going to get divorced. Stop trying to make things difficult for me." He became more and more excited as he spoke, and he looked like he was about to rush up and beat me up. She's been busy preparing for an art exhibition lately. She's so busy that she didn't even have time to eat. I followed her because I was worried. Jessica quickly grabbed his hand and soothed him softly. "Don't be angry. Don't scare our child." Ryan glared at me, then looked at Jessica tenderly. His concerned look made my stomach churn. I couldn't help but sneer. "She and I haven't divorced yet, and you are together so blatantly. This is called cheating, do you understand?" Ryan gritted his teeth angrily. "Why are you so sarcastic? No wonder your wife looks down on you. Jessica, you either come with me today or stay here with him. You choose one." Jessica left hand in hand with her lover without much hesitation. Strangely enough, my mother was in good condition that day. I had no choice but to lie and say that Jessica couldn't come because of something urgent. My mother didn't ask any more questions. But who could have thought that she suddenly fell into a coma in the evening and the doctor directly issued a critical illness notice? When she finally woke up, the first thing she said was that she wanted to see Jessica. I was so flustered that I quickly called Jessica, but she didn't answer for a long time. I held my head, squatted on the ground, and almost begged, "Can you come over?" She said in a cold tone, "It's too late." I was so anxious that my eyes turned red, and I roared, "My mother is dying." But she replied impatiently, "Don't joke like that." I was shocked and angry and couldn't believe my ears. "Do you think I would joke about my mother's life?" She was silent for a while and said, "It's raining tonight and I'm pregnant. He won't let me go out." I didn't care about my face anymore and begged bitterly, "Let him take you here, or I'll ask a friend to drive to pick you up and ensure your safety. Okay? For the sake of our 10 years of relationship, please help me this last time." She sighed and said, "I'll talk to him." I seemed to have grabbed a life-saving straw and said incoherently, "I was wrong to quarrel today. As long as you can come tonight, I will agree to whatever you want, okay?" There were lightning and thunder in the sky, as if playing an elegy for my broken self-esteem. Ryan's hoarse voice came from the other end of the line, and then the call was hung up. I called again, but no one answered. Jessica didn't show up until late at night. My mother noticed something was wrong and asked cautiously, "Did you have a conflict with Jessica?" I pretended to be calm and forced a smile that was uglier than crying. "No, she is on her way." My mother frowned even more and asked me to call her so that she could talk to Jessica. But the phone was turned off. Later, my mother's consciousness became more and more blurred, and she kept muttering, "Son, if you are not doing well, how can I be at ease?" When it was just dawn, my mother's hand slowly dropped down. She held my hand tightly and refused to close her eyes. At that moment, my world completely collapsed and turned into ruins. I took my mother's ashes back to the countryside to bury them, and Jessica followed me. She lowered her head, looking guilty. "I'm sorry, I didn't know." That night, my mother— I was exhausted and said coldly, "You don't deserve to mention my mother." Ryan jumped out again. "Can't you speak properly?" Jessica's voice softened. "I just want to see if there is anything I can do to help." I refused coldly. "No." But she refused to leave and stay by my side. The funeral was very simple, and only a few neighbors in the village were invited to help. When everything was over and everyone had left, I finally calmed down and said to Jessica, "Let's talk." She nodded. I said in a cold tone, "Hurry up and complete the divorce procedures." She frowned and tried to change the subject. "I want to explain to you what happened that night." I interrupted her directly. "I don't want to listen. You are the party at fault, and I want you to leave the house with nothing. I know the family assets. Don't play tricks and don't negotiate with me. Otherwise, I will publicize your affairs to everyone." Jessica's eyes were dim. "William, the family assets were originally earned by you. Do you think I will fight with you for these?" I sneered. "You can't judge a person by his face." She showed a disappointed expression. "You were not like this before." I replied, "People change. Jessica would never treat me like this before." A long silence was broken by Ryan's phone ringing. She walked out to answer the phone, and I closed the door directly. She never came back. That night, I lay on the bed in the old house and had a very long dream. I dreamed that I was 22 years old, bringing Jessica home at all costs, and told my mother that I wanted to marry her. The creditors chased us home and made a lot of noise every day. My mother hid her in a room and told her not to go out and let me handle everything. I dealt with those creditors alone for several months and finally solved the problem before the new year. On New Year's Eve, it snowed heavily. I dragged my tired body and rushed home from other places. Snowflakes fell on me in large pieces, and soon they accumulated layer by layer, but I missed home and Jessica in my heart, and I didn't feel a bit of cold. Finally, I arrived at the door of my house. As soon as I took out the key, the door was suddenly opened. Jessica rushed out like a happy little deer and threw herself into my arms. I caught her steadily, and at that moment, my fatigue instantly disappeared. She cried and laughed, looking very cute, and shouted, I don't want to be separated from you in the future." I was filled with joy and was about to respond, but suddenly, the scene in front of me spun around. I stared with horror and saw Jessica turn around in the snow and throw herself into someone else's arms. Then, the two of them kissed passionately. I shouted desperately, "Jessica! Jessica!" But she seemed to be under a spell and could not hear my shouts. Then, everything in front of me was suddenly dark, and I felt like I fell into an endless abyss. A strong sense of weightlessness came over me, and I kept falling down. When I woke up the next day, I was burning hot all over with a high fever, and my consciousness became groggy. I lay at home in a daze for 2 days, feeling so uncomfortable that I felt like I was going to die in the next second. But before I could recover, the news from my business partner was like a thunderbolt, which woke me up. There was a big problem with the supply of red wine, involving a large sum of money. I didn't care about my weak body. I was shocked and sat up from the bed, dressed quickly, and went out. From then on, I saw a doctor, took medicine, and recovered all by myself. These 4 months were like a nightmare. Not only did they exhaust my energy, but there were also many mistakes in the business. I was busy like a top and didn't even have time to feel sad. The next time I heard about Jessica was when she became famous at an art exhibition. Mr. Zhou Yi, a master of the art world, was famous for his high standards and strict requirements, but he praised her highly, saying that she was like a pearl covered in dust for so many years. The old man even broke his seclusion and appeared publicly at the art exhibition, and publicly stated that Jessica was the most talented young female painter he had ever seen in his life. As soon as the news came out, the industry was instantly shaken, and the media swarmed over like sharks smelling blood, and the reports on the internet were overwhelming. Jessica was already beautiful, and this time the attention she received directly surpassed that of traffic stars. The entry goddess painter Jessica immediately topped the hot search list. All her works at the exhibition were sold out, and someone even offered $10 million to buy the most eye-catching painting of the day, but Jessica refused. The reporters smelled the gossip and asked who the man in the painting was, and she openly expressed her love. My college roommate Lin Zhuang forwarded this video to me and asked, "Why would Jessica say that?" I looked at the divorce agreement I had just received, and my heart ached, but I pretended to be calm and replied to him, "Nothing. She fell in love with someone else, and we plan to divorce." Lin Zhuang called me directly, his voice raised 8 degrees with anger. "Wasn't everything fine 4 months ago? Doesn't she know how much you suffer in France for her?" I said indifferently, knowing it won't change anything. On our 6th wedding anniversary, I wanted to prepare a special gift for Jessica. I knew that her favorite painter was Mr. Zhou Yi, who rarely appeared in public when he was young and now lives in seclusion, making it difficult to find his whereabouts. But in order to surprise her, I tried every possible way and used all my connections, and finally heard a piece of news that someone saw him visiting a street art exhibition in the Marais district of Paris. So, I went to France alone on the pretext of a business trip. It was my first time going abroad, and I was unfamiliar with the place. On the first day, I was extremely unlucky and my luggage was robbed. I hurried to chase him, but was led to a remote alley where a group of street thugs surrounded me. I was outnumbered and was pinned to the ground and beaten. Before I lost consciousness, I heard someone shout something in French, and the thugs hurriedly fled. When I woke up in the hospital, I found that I had only suffered some skin injuries. It turned out that Lin Zhuang had saved me. He was my college roommate. He went abroad a year after I got married. We gradually lost contact. I didn't expect to meet again in this way. During my injury, thanks to his care, he asked me, "Don't you tell Jessica?" I shook my head. At that time, Jessica was locking herself in the studio. It seemed that her creation had reached a critical period. I didn't want her to worry. As soon as my injury got better, I was eager to go out and waited in Marais every day. In fact, I didn't know if I could find Mr. Zhou, but I didn't want to give up a glimmer of hope. After Lin Zhuang knew the purpose of my coming to France, his eyes were as big as copper bells, and he laughed at me exaggeratedly. "Just spoil your one, and you will spoil him one day." I rolled my eyes at him and said, "I do." We played and fought, as if we were back in college. I made a deal with a street vendor in Marais, rented his art stand, picked out a few of Jessica's works from different periods, put them in the most conspicuous place, and prayed for good luck every day. It was winter, and I spent all my time on the streets except sleeping, blowing the cold wind, and my ears were frozen with frostbite. While buying medicine for me, Lin Zhuang complained, "You are asking for trouble." After 3 weeks in France, I planned to return home as Valentine's Day was approaching. This trip to a foreign country was indeed too impulsive, and it was not surprising that I didn't find anyone. I thought I would come back next time when I had more accurate information. But who could have thought that an accident would happen on the last day? I was about to close the stall when Mr. Zhou appeared. He immediately took a liking to Jessica's work when she was 18 years old. He smiled and asked me, "Who is the creator of this painting?" I said Jessica's name with pride on my face. He pointed to the "Not for Sale" label on the side of the painting and asked, "Not for sale?" I nodded. "This is my personal collection." "Then why put it out?" I replied. "I hope more people can see this amazing painter." He stared at the painting thoughtfully for a long time, and finally left with a smile. I know Mr. Zhou's temper. He is famous for cherishing talents. He has discovered many unknown painters in the past. Now, they have become big names in the industry. I know that Jessica's chance has come. Things are going better than I expected. I am happy for Jessica from the bottom of my heart. She is one step closer to her dream. On the wedding anniversary, I lied to Jessica that I was in France and couldn't go back, thinking of giving her a surprise. But when I told her about it, she reacted coldly and replied lightly, "I know." At that moment, I couldn't help feeling a little disappointed, as if I had been splashed with a basin of cold water. But when I got on the plane, I saw her circle of friends. "Missing you is like a mountain and sea." These words were like magic, sweeping away all the unhappiness in my heart. On the way back, I was full of longing for our beautiful future. Now thinking about it, it's really ironic that her thoughts had already been given to someone else. Lin Zhuang asked me, "Don't you feel unwilling?" I tried to look calm and answered, "Of course, but now it's more important to live my life well." Lin Zhuang breathed a sigh of relief and said, "William, sometimes you are so rational that it's scary." I forced a smile and said, "Thank you for the compliment." After hanging up the phone, the surroundings suddenly became quiet. I clicked on a video again. Jessica smiled gently and affectionately in front of the camera and said that the boy was the love of her life. After watching it, my heart was still sour. I called her and said to her, "The income from the exhibition is also considered premarital property. If we divorce, the money must belong to me." She mocked me and agreed. It seems that she is really anxious to marry her sweetheart. I try to treat the trip to France as an investment. Now I have gained a fortune, so it's not a big loss. Thinking about it this way, I slowly accepted the reality. Money can sometimes heal a lot of pain. That day, I opened a bottle of the best red wine for myself and drank it alone until late at night. The next morning, I was woken up by a phone call. Lin Zhuang's voice sounded distant and near, and he said, "Open the door." I rushed out in a daze and stumbled to open the door and saw him carrying his luggage with a look of dissatisfaction on his face. "Such a big thing happened. You didn't tell me at all. It's not nice." I was stunned for a moment. He opened his arms, smiled, and said, "Brother, I'm here to accompany you." I was very moved, thinking he's really a good brother. But the fact is that I was moved too early. For a man who is about to divorce, a man in love is simply poison. In the evening, I waited for him to discuss things together, but he was procrastinating and chatting with his girlfriend on video calls. I grabbed his neck and scolded him with a smile. "You are too much to show your affection in front of me." But he smiled shamelessly. I call it fighting poison with poison. In fact, I admire him very much. He was hurt so deeply before, but he can still live so freely now. I couldn't help asking him, "Do you regret loving Zhou Yin?" I regretted it as soon as I said it. When Lin Zhuang heard this name, he didn't have any special emotions, but just said, "A relationship can't be considered a tragedy just because it ends badly." I thought about this sentence carefully and felt that it made sense. I don't have to resent the 18-year-old Jessica, who amazed me because of the 28-year-old Jessica. She just changed, and I will accept it and slowly let it go. A month later, Jessica and I got a divorce certificate. I bought a winery in Montmartre, Paris, and planned to go to France to learn winemaking. Lin Zhuang had already settled there and welcomed me to go. On the day I left the country, Jessica and Ryan held a grand wedding. I heard that the bride wore a high-end custom wedding dress and was covered in jewels. I couldn't help but think of how poor we were when we got married. The wedding dress was just a little white dress worth 200 yuan, and the bouquet was a K-pop plant picked from the roadside. We were simple and plain at that time, just like our pure love at that time. But now everything has changed. The past days are gradually fading away like the wind, and things and people have changed. I boarded the plane, determined to run towards a brand new life. Later, my life gradually calmed down. I thought I would never meet Jessica again. Unexpectedly, a year later, I went back to my hometown to visit the graves and ran into her again. Jessica was holding a bunch of white chrysanthemums and standing in front of my mother's grave. When she saw me, a hint of surprise flashed in her eyes, and she called my name in a hoarse voice. I asked with a sullen face, "What are you doing here?" She walked a few steps towards me and said anxiously, "I thought I might meet you. You sold a house and changed your mobile phone number, and I couldn't find you anyway." I stepped back, distanced myself from her, and asked coldly, "What's wrong with you?" The mountain wind blew, rolling up some fine sand. She was probably blinded by it, and her eyes were slightly red. She said, "I just wanted to talk to you." I thought it was very funny. "Jessica, you have a husband now. Let's go. Don't be in front of my parents' graves." But she didn't move, as if she didn't hear it. I couldn't drive her away, so I just ignored her. She said to herself, "I want to explain to you what happened the night Mom died." She didn't care whether I wanted to listen or not. She continued, "I was planning to go out, but he stopped me, and I accidentally had miscarriage." I perfunctorily said, She lowered her head and said in a sad tone, "William, I had a miscarriage that night." My hand that was placing the offerings paused slightly, but I still didn't talk to her. After a while, she suddenly spoke again. "If I had come that night, would you not hate me so much?" I raised my head and met her eyes, which were full of sadness. But I didn't understand what the point of her being like this was. I quickly looked away and pretended that I didn't see anything. I burned 3 incense sticks for my parents, reported my recent situation to them, and told them that I was living a good life now. After the worship, I went down the mountain, and Jessica followed me all the time. She talked a lot along the way, saying that we used to see the flowers on the hillside, the birds in the forest, and the clouds in the sky together in the village. She remembered everything, but Jessica, the flowers on the hillside were no longer the same as they were in the past. The birds in the woods had long since flown away, and even the clouds in the sky had changed shape. Everything was different. The house in my hometown was untied and uninhabitable. After staying in a hotel in town for one night, I flew directly back to France. This reunion with Jessica did not cause much waves in my heart. It happened that Lin Zhuang founded his own clothing design brand and became very busy. The people I hired at the manor were usually free, so they went to his studio to help all day. I joked with him, "We studied trade, but now you're doing clothing design, and I am making wine. Isn't this not doing your job properly?" Lin Zhuang shook his finger and retorted seriously, "No, no, no. Life is a process of slowly getting to know yourself." During the chat, I suddenly became curious and asked him, "When did you become interested in clothing design?" He hesitated and said in a low voice, "When you married Jessica." He continued, "There's something you didn't know. Do you remember the dresses you wore at the wedding? The patterns were very beautiful, but the price was ridiculously low. You always thought I asked my friends to help me get it so cheap, right?" I nodded. He continued, "Actually, Jessica didn't want to spend too much money, so she only bought the most ordinary white dress and suit. But she didn't want you to feel wronged, so she drew the pictures herself and asked my designer friend to embroider the pattern stitch by stitch. Even the veil was made by her. I didn't know she could do needlework. She really couldn't do it first, but my friend was amazing and taught well, and she was smart, so she learned it in a few days. She was afraid of hurting your self-esteem, so she specifically told me not to tell you. She said that she was just helping out at the time, but the moment she saw us wearing the dresses, she felt a sense of accomplishment. Our thoughts suddenly drifted back to the past. Lin Zhuang recalled. On the wedding day, you lifted Jessica's veil, and she saw your face and was so moved that she cried. I still remember it. I listened with mixed feelings and said with a wry smile, she really loved me at that time. Lin Zhuang thought for a moment and said, actually, I ran into Jessica 2 days ago. I didn't react much and just said, Paris is the capital of art. She's a painter, so it's normal for her to come here. Lin Zhuang shook his head. I felt she was looking for you. That night you left your things here with me, and I went to chase you and just saw her following behind you, watching from a distance and not coming forward. I joked, you're so busy, you might have recognized the wrong person. Lin Zhuang got anxious and yelled at me. Do you think I'm blind? I even chatted with her for a few words. Brother, I specifically told her about your previous visit to Paris to find Mr. Zhou. We can't do good things without leaving our names. I thought of this and gave him a thumbs up. Lin Zhuang sighed. After she heard it, she was stunned and lost. She looked a little pitiful. I paused and said, it has nothing to do with me anymore. A very capable girl came to my manor. Under her care, the grapes in the garden grew very well. Thanks to her, the newly brewed wine is of high quality, and we received a big order. Unexpectedly, the customer who ordered the wine held a banquet and invited all the celebrities in the art world, including Jessica. When I went to deliver the wine, I met her and Ryan. The two of them were in a very strange state. They didn't communicate much and didn't look like a newlywed couple at all. I didn't stay for long. I signed the order and prepared to leave. Jessica saw me and followed me out. Ryan didn't react. I was in a hurry. Jessica ran up and held my hand. But as soon as our skin touched, she quickly let go. I'm sorry. Jessica stammered. What do you want to do? I asked. William, She hesitated. I lost my patience. She seemed to have suddenly thought of something. Her originally dim eyes suddenly lit up. I want to paint a French landscape. Can you be my guide? Afraid that I would refuse, she quickly added, you can set the conditions. I replied, I'm not short of money. She was like a deflated ball, and her tone was almost begging. William, can't you give me a chance to compensate? I looked at her coldly. Compensation for what? I already know about Mr. Zhou's affairs. You were chosen by him because you have your own ability, and I also took your money. We owe each other nothing. Jessica lowered her head and whispered, why didn't you tell me at the beginning? I smiled. What difference would it make if you told me? Her eyes were full of sadness, but she still said stubbornly, maybe we wouldn't have come to this point today. I just felt ironic. Jessica, wake up. We have been together for so many years. Haven't I done enough stupid things for you? Your heart was not with me at the beginning, and it was useless to say or do anything. Besides, I don't care about your temporary touch. Maybe I had imagined such a scene before, that the unfaithful person would repent, but when this moment came, I didn't feel as happy as I imagined. How did the girl who was once so brilliant become like this? I paused and said seriously, Jessica, don't make excuses for yourself, otherwise I will look down on you. Just walk the path you have chosen. After that, I stopped looking at her and walked away without looking back. That night, Lin Zhuang was working overtime, so he asked me to buy him a midnight snack and send it over. It was already late, and on the road to his studio, 2 street lights were broken, and the whole path was dark and quiet. Suddenly, 2 men with knives jumped out from the roadside and tried to rob me of my belongings. I didn't have much money on me, so after they searched my bag, they shouted a few words at me in broken French, which I didn't quite understand. Then they punched me, and I hurriedly wrestled with them. In a panic, a figure rushed over quickly and picked up a stone to hit the gangster's head. The knife-wielding gangster was so angry that he turned around and stabbed the man twice, then fled in a hurry. All this happened so quickly that when I reacted, I saw Jessica lying on the ground covered in blood. I rushed her to the hospital, and the doctor said that she was stabbed in the abdomen, but fortunately it didn't hurt her vital parts, but the tendons in her right palm were cut, and I was afraid she wouldn't be able to paint anymore. Jessica, who was pale on the bed, with mixed feelings in my heart, and my brows were unconsciously frowning. When she saw me, the first thing she asked was if I was injured. I shook my head, but my brows frowned even tighter. She forced a weak smile and comforted me. "Don't worry, my injury is not serious." I hesitated for a long time, but finally gritted my teeth and told her the truth that her right hand might never be able to draw again. The moment she heard the news, the smile on her face froze, like a frozen picture, and then she pretended to be relaxed and said, "It's okay, as long as you are okay." But she couldn't hide the pain in her heart after all. She turned her face away, her whole body trembling slightly. I know that a corner of her world collapsed at this moment. I tried to comfort her. "The doctor didn't say there is no hope. Even if the right hand doesn't work, we can still try the left hand. There will always be a way." She suddenly turned her head, her eyes red, and asked with a hint of expectation, "William, if Ryan and I divorce, we—" I interrupted her immediately, trying to be calm but resolute. "Jessica, the past is the past. There will be no more we. You should take good care of your injuries first and don't think about these things." The despair in Jessica's eyes was clearly visible. Tears rolled in her eyes, and she begged humbly, "At least tonight, can you not leave?" I said calmly, "The person who can stay with you now should be Ryan, not me." However, Ryan seemed to have disappeared that night and never showed up. In the end, I softened my heart and stayed. Jessica was in surgery. I used her cell phone to call Ryan, but no one answered the phone. The text messages I sent later also fell into the sea and received no response. In the middle of the night, Jessica developed a low-grade fever and bleeding from the wound. The doctor checked again and found that she also had stomach cancer. Fortunately, it was not in the late stage. As long as she was actively treated, there was still hope of recovery. I was full of doubts. She was now famous and wealthy. Why would she toss her body like this? But at this moment, I chose to remain silent and said nothing. The next afternoon, Ryan finally showed up. He was dressed in bright and beautiful clothes, and his whole face was radiant, as if the outside world was sunny and bright, which was in sharp contrast to the depression in the ward. As soon as he entered the room, he pestered the doctor to ask if Jessica's hands could still be used for painting, and he didn't even notice me standing next to him. I looked at him with disdain in my heart. I walked to Jessica's bedside and said to her, "You should take good care of your illness. I'm leaving." She lay quietly on the bed, her eyes dead, and she didn't speak, as if her soul had been pulled out. Since Jessica's right hand became disabled and she could no longer paint, her previous works seemed to be enchanted and their value soared. The news of the public auction of Muse, which made her famous overnight, instantly caused an uproar in the art circle and on the internet. She expressed her love at the exhibition and soon married the male protagonist Ryan in the painting. This story was once passed down by netizens as a good story, making the painting even more precious. In the end, a wealthy collector bought it for a sky-high price of $50 million. However, the good times did not last long. A few days later, things took a dramatic turn. The two entries, "Ryan sells fake paintings" and "Jessica cheated on her husband," were like two heavy bombs, instantly becoming hot searches and sparking heated discussions among the public. Jessica held an emergency press conference. In front of the camera, she looked solemn and publicly stated that the original Muse had been destroyed long ago and all the paintings sold in the market were forged by Ryan. She also bravely admitted that the seemingly romantic story behind Muse was actually an ugly extramarital affair. When she became successful, she ruthlessly abandoned me, who she had been in love with for 10 years. This news was like a depth bomb, which instantly made netizens explode, and they began to denounce this scumbag woman and scumbag man. The police also quickly intervened to investigate the sale of fake paintings because of Jessica's revelations. Soon, Ryan was arrested on suspicion of producing and selling counterfeit goods. Due to the huge amount of money involved, he will face severe punishment of life imprisonment. And Jessica, after that, seemed to have evaporated from the face of the earth, and there was no news about her. After the series of ups and downs, my life gradually returned to peace like a calm lake, without any more waves. The winery business was also booming under my careful management. One day, half a year later, a very strange guest came to the winery, a 16-year-old French girl. She would come to the winery every few days, and every time she specifically asked for the wine, I brewed myself. Not only that, she also had a special request, asking me to teach her Chinese, one sentence each time, and she would carefully record my words with a recorder. Sometimes I taught simple greetings like good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Sometimes it was other words. On Valentine's Day, she came as promised again. She asked me to teach her, I love you. At that time, I had already started a new relationship with the girl who took care of the estate. After I clearly recorded, I love you, as she requested, she suddenly came over and responded with I love you too in not very standard Chinese. I touched her head lovingly, then turned to explain to my girlfriend. The girlfriend pursed her lips as if she was a little conflicted, but in the end she said nothing and left silently with the wine. That night, I received a strange phone call. After the call was connected, the other end remained silent for a long time. I thought it was a wrong call, and my girlfriend happened to call me for dinner, so I hung up the phone. Since then, the girl has never come to the winery again. Jessica's name reappeared in the public eye shortly after Valentine's Day. I accidentally saw the entry Jessica's death on the hot search list, and I was stunned for a long time. News reports said that her body was found in a dilapidated farm in France. At that time, she was sick and poor, and life seemed to have tortured her beyond recognition. Her only relic was a painting called Beloved, which showed a couple in wedding dresses. The bride wore a white dress and held a bunch of kapok in her hand. The groom gently hugged her. Their faces were covered by the veil and were hazy and unclear. Industry experts gave high praise to this painting and believed that it was the most outstanding work of Jessica's life. Netizens speculated whether she was missing her former lover or met a new confidant. I looked at the kapok in the bride's hand in the painting, and memories came like a tide. The year I married Jessica, the kapok flowers bloomed very early. I picked some and tied them into a bouquet for her. She curiously asked me why I didn't pick roses. I smiled mysteriously and said, because I like it. This is the flower language of kapok. Now, everything has become the past. I know that life goes on. I will take new hope and move forward to the future with my lover. All the past love, hatred, and grudges will turn into dust and dissipate in the long river of time.